Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us for the second part of our story. Let's jump right back in. The following days at Mark's blurred together in a fog of reflection and anxiety. I spent most of my time pacing the guest room, alternating between frantic note-taking as I tried to untangle my thoughts, and long stretches of staring blankly at the wall. Mark, true to his word, gave me space but made sure I ate and didn't spiral too far into isolation. It was on the fourth day that my phone buzzed with a message that made my heart skip a beat. Sarah, I know you're staying at Mark's. Can we talk, please? I stared at the screen, frozen. How did she know where I was? Had Mark told her? The thought of seeing her again filled me with a mix of longing and dread. I missed her terribly, but I was terrified of what our conversation might bring. With trembling fingers, I typed out a response. Me. Okay, there's a cafe just down the street from Mark's. Meet me there at 2. Her reply came almost instantly. Sarah. I'll be there. The next few hours passed in a blur of nerves and preparation. I showered, shaved, and put on clean clothes, trying to make myself look a little less like the wreck I felt inside. I rehearsed everything I wanted to say, but no matter how many versions I ran through, they all seemed to end with Sarah walking away, hurt, angry, disappointed. At 1:45, I walked into the cafe and chose a quiet corner table, away from the few other patrons, some college students with laptops, an older man reading the paper. I ordered a coffee I knew I wouldn't drink, and waited, my leg bouncing beneath the table. At exactly 2 o'clock, the bell over the door chimed. Sarah walked in. My breath caught. She looked beautiful, always did, but the past few days had clearly taken a toll. There were dark circles under her eyes, and the confident way she normally carried herself was replaced by something hesitant, unsure. Our eyes met. For a second, neither of us moved. Then, as if pulled forward by something neither of us could resist, she came over to my table. I stood awkwardly, unsure whether to reach for a hug, offer a handshake, or just freeze entirely. She made the decision for me, sliding into the booth across from me without a word. Hi, I said, my voice sounding unfamiliar. Hi, she replied. We sat in silence, the tension between us almost unbearable. Then softly Sarah spoke. Why did you leave? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Was it something I did? Something I said? The pain in her eyes was like a punch to the gut. I wanted to reach for her hand, to tell her she'd done nothing wrong. But I knew we needed to have this conversation, as hard as it might be. No, Sarah, I said, forcing myself to keep my voice steady. It wasn't you. It was everything. The pressure, the expectations, your mother. At the mention of Evelyn, Sarah's expression shifted, tightened. What does my mother have to do with this? I took a deep breath. This was it. Everything, Sarah. She has everything to do with it. The day I left, she came to the house. She demanded I pay for that European vacation she's been planning. When I said no, she slapped me. Sarah's eyes went wide in disbelief. She what? No, that can't be right. My mother would never. She did, I said firmly. And then she threatened to destroy our marriage if I didn't pay for the trip. Sarah, I've been trying to tell you for years how your mother makes me feel, how she constantly undermines me and makes me feel like I'm not good enough for you. But you never seem to see it. Sarah flinched at my words, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't realize. God, Alex, I'm so sorry. Her apology, though sincere, couldn't undo years of hurt and frustration. I know you are, I said quietly. But Sarah, this isn't just about your mother. It's about us, about the life we've been living. I feel like I've been losing myself trying to fit into this mold of what your family thinks I should be. I'm drowning. I needed to get away to remember who I am outside of all this. Sarah reached across the table, taking my hand in hers. The familiar warmth of her touch sent a shock through me. I never meant for you to feel that way, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I love you, Alex, just as you are. I thought I was supporting you by trying to help you fit in with my family. I never realized how much it was hurting you. I squeezed her hand gently. I know you didn't mean to hurt me, but Sarah, we can't go on like this. Something has to change. She nodded slowly, wiping away a tear with her free hand. You're right, but Alex, running away isn't the answer. We need to face this together. We need to set boundaries with my mother, with my family. I see that now. A spark of hope flickered within me, though I remained cautious. Can we really do that? Your mother, she's a force of nature, and you've always been so close to her. I don't want to come between you and your family. Sarah tightened her grip on my hand. You're my family too, Alex. I've been blind to what's been happening, and I'm so sorry for that. But I want to make this right. I want us to be a team. We'll stand up to my mother together. I felt my resolve waver. The past few days without Sarah had been torture, and the thought of facing our problems together was tempting. But I also knew that real change wouldn't be easy. It won't be easy, I said, voicing my concerns. Your mother isn't going to like it when we start setting boundaries. Are you sure you're ready for that? Sarah took a deep breath and squared her shoulders. I'm sure. I love my mother, but I love you too, and I won't let her or anyone else come between us. We'll figure this out together. Okay? I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. We weren't out of the woods yet, not by a long shot, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were finally on the same page. Okay, I said. Together, we spent the next hour talking, really talking, in a way we hadn't in years. Sarah shared her shock and confusion when she found my note, along with the frantic calls she made to friends and family. I went on to explain more about the confrontation with Evelyn, about the years of built-up resentment and frustration. As we spoke, I could see Sarah processing everything, her expression shifting from disbelief to anger and finally to determination. By the time we left the cafe hand in hand, we had the beginnings of a plan. We would go home together, but we would also begin couples therapy. We would establish clear boundaries with Evelyn and the rest of Sarah's family. And most importantly, we would prioritize our relationship and well-being over anyone else's expectations. As we walked back to Mark's to grab my things, Sarah looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mix of love and resolve. We're going to get through this, Alex. It won't be easy, but we'll do it together. I pulled her close, inhaling the familiar scent of her shampoo. Together, I agreed. The road ahead would be tough. Confronting Evelyn, changing the dynamics of our relationship with Sarah's family, and working through years of unresolved issues, none of it would be simple. But as we walked down the street, our hands intertwined, I felt a sense of hope I hadn't had in years. We had taken the first step toward reclaiming our life together. Whatever came next, we would face it as a united front, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like that might be enough. The drive back to our house felt both familiar and strange. Sarah's hand rested on my knee as I navigated the streets I had driven countless times before. But there was a new tension in the air. We both knew we weren't just heading back to our home. We were returning to the epicenter of the storm we would have to weather. As we drove up the driveway, I saw Evelyn's car parked on the street. Sarah's hand gripped my knee. She's here, she said, her voice full of both resolve and nervousness. I turned off the engine but stayed in the car for a moment. Are you ready for this? I asked, looking at her. She took a deep breath and nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. Remember, we're in this together. We walked hand in hand to the front door. Before we could even get a key in the lock, it swung open, revealing Evelyn. Her face was a mask of concern that quickly morphed into relief, then anger, as her gaze settled on me. Sarah, darling, thank goodness you're home, she said, pulling Sarah into a hug while glaring at me with a fiery look. How could you run off like that with him? Sarah gently but firmly pulled herself away from her mother's embrace. Mom, we need to talk. All of us. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, but she stepped back, allowing us into our own home. The living room, once cozy and welcoming, now felt charged with tension. The family photos on the walls seemed like silent witnesses to the confrontation about to unfold. We sat down, Sarah and I on the couch, Evelyn on a chair across from us. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Sarah, her voice steadier than I had expected, began. Mom, I know you're upset, and you have every right to be concerned. But Alex and I have talked, and there are some things we need to address. Evelyn's posture immediately stiffened. What things, Sarah? If he's put you up to this. He hasn't put me up to anything, Sarah interrupted, a hint of steel in her voice. In fact, it's taken me far too long to see what's been happening. Mom, the way you've been treating Alex, the way you've been interfering in our marriage, it has to stop. Evelyn's face flushed with indignation. Interfering? I've only ever wanted what's best for you, Sarah. And if she jerked her head in my direction, can't provide that then, couldn't hold back anymore. My own anger finally bubbled to the surface. You'll try to break us up? Force Sarah to choose between her husband and her mother. Alex, Sarah said softly, placing a calming hand on my arm before turning back to Evelyn. Mom, I love you. You're my mother, and that will never change. But Alex is my husband, my partner. We're a team, and if you can't respect that, if you can't treat him with the same love and respect you show me, then we're going to have to set some boundaries. Evelyn's face cycled through a range of emotions. Shock, hurt, and finally anger. Boundaries? Sarah, I'm your mother. I only want what's best for you. What's best for you isn't always what's best for us, Sarah said firmly. The vacation, for instance. We can't afford it right now, Mom. We have other financial priorities, and it's not your place to demand that we spend our money a certain way. I watched in awe as Sarah continued laying out the new ground rules. No more surprise visits, no more financial demands, No more criticizing my job or our lifestyle choices. With each point, Evelyn seemed to shrink a little in her chair. When Sarah finished, the room fell into a heavy silence. Evelyn's eyes were brimming with unshed tears. I never meant to hurt you, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Either of you. I just wanted to give you the life I thought you deserved. We appreciate that, Mom, Sarah said, her tone softening slightly. But we need to live our own life, make our own choices. Can you understand that? Evelyn nodded slowly, though I could see the struggle in her eyes. I'll try, she said. It won't be easy, but I'll try. As Evelyn left that evening, the atmosphere in the house felt different. Lighter in some ways, heavier in others. Sarah and I were both emotionally drained, but there was also a sense of accomplishment, of having taken a crucial step together. Over the next few weeks, we worked on rebuilding our life. We started couples therapy, which helped us communicate better and tackle some of the issues that had been simmering beneath the surface. We also had individual sessions, giving us space to process our own feelings and experiences. Dealing with Evelyn remained an ongoing challenge. There were moments of progress, like when she called ahead to ask if it was a good time to visit instead of just showing up. But there were also frustrating moments when old habits resurfaced. Still, slowly but surely, things began to change. One evening, about a month after our confrontation, Sarah and I were sitting on our back porch, watching the sunset. I've been thinking, she said, her fingers intertwined with mine, about our future. I turned to look at her, curiosity sparking. What about it? I asked. She took a deep breath. I think I want to look for a job in another city. A fresh start for both of us. The idea took me by surprise. We talked about moving before, but it had always been a distant dream. Something for someday. Are you sure? I asked. What about your job? Your friends? Your family? Sarah smiled, a mix of excitement and nervousness shining in her eyes. I love my job, but there are other opportunities out there. As for friends, we can make new ones and still keep in touch with the old. And my family, well, maybe some distance would be good for all of us right now, right? I thought about her words. The idea of leaving Boston, the only home we'd known as a couple, was daunting, but it also felt exhilarating. It was a chance to start fresh, away from the shadows of the past. Where were you thinking? I asked, feeling a spark of excitement building within me. I was looking at some openings in Portland, she said. It's a big change, I know, but I think it could be good for us. What do you think? I took a moment to truly consider it. Portland was on the other side of the country, as far away from Boston and Evelyn as we could get while still staying within the continental U.S. It would mean leaving everything familiar behind, but it also held the promise of a new beginning. I think, I said slowly, that it sounds like an adventure, and I can't think of anyone I'd rather have an adventure with than you. Sarah's face lit up with a smile that made my heart skip a beat. It was the same smile I'd fallen in love with all those years ago, full of hope and possibility. Really? You'd be willing to make such a big move? I nodded, feeling more certain with each passing moment. Really, we've been talking about making changes, about putting our relationship first. This feels like a concrete step in that direction. We spent the rest of the evening discussing the logistics. Job searches, housing options, what we would take with us and what we would leave behind. It was overwhelming, but also incredibly exciting. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were truly in control of our lives, making choices based on what we wanted, not what others expected of us. The next day, we began putting our plan into action. Sarah started looking for job openings in Portland, while I researched the tech industry there. We made lists of everything we needed to do to prepare for such a big move. It was a lot of work, but it felt good to be working towards something together. Telling Evelyn about our decision was another hurdle we had to face. We invited her over for dinner, wanting to break the news in person. As expected, she didn't take it well at first. There were tears, accusations, and pleas for us to reconsider. But Sarah stood firm, reminding her mother of the boundaries we'd set and our need to live our own lives. To my surprise, it was Evelyn who finally broke the tension. I understand, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I don't like it, but I understand. Just promise me you'll visit and call often. As we hugged Evelyn goodbye that night, a glimmer of hope flickered within me. Maybe this move would be good not only for Sarah and me, but also for our relationship with her family. In this case, distance might indeed make the heart grow fonder. In the weeks that followed, our lives became a whirlwind of activity. Job applications, video interviews, housing searches, all while trying to wrap up our lives in Boston. It was stressful but invigorating. Each step we took towards our new life in Portland felt like a step towards a stronger, healthier relationship. One evening, as we sat surrounded by half-packed boxes, Sarah turned to me with a mischievous glint in her eye. You know, she said, we never did get to take that European vacation. I tensed for a moment, memories of Evelyn's ultimatum flashing through my mind. But Sarah just laughed. "Relax," she said. "I was thinking maybe once we're settled in Portland, we could start saving for a trip. One that we planned together. No pressure, no expectations. Just us." I felt a warmth spread through my chest. "I'd like that," I said, pulling her close. "I'd like that a lot." As I held Sarah in our soon-to-be former living room, surrounded by the physical reminders of our impending change, I felt a profound sense of peace. We had faced our challenges head-on, made difficult choices, and come out stronger for it. Whatever the future held, whether in Portland or beyond, I knew we'd face it together. And really, that was all that mattered. The Portland rain pattered against the windows of our new apartment, a soothing sound that had become the backdrop to our lives over the past 6 months. I stood at the large bay window, coffee in hand, watching the city come to life in the early morning mist. Behind me, I could hear Sarah shuffling around in the kitchen, the clinking of dishes and the aroma of toast filling the air. "Hey, don't forget we're having dinner with the Millers tonight," Sarah called out. I smiled to myself. The Millers were a couple we'd met at a neighborhood barbecue shortly after moving in. They'd become fast friends, part of the new life we were building here in Portland. It still felt strange at times, how quickly we'd adapted to this new city, this new lifestyle. As I turned away from the window, my eyes landed on the calendar hanging on the wall. A date was circled in red, 3 weeks from now. Evelyn's visit. Our first face-to-face meeting since we'd moved across the country. The thought sent a familiar flutter of anxiety through my stomach, but it was milder now, softened by time and distance. "You okay?" Sarah asked, coming up behind me and wrapping her arms around my waist. She'd noticed my gaze on the calendar. I nodded, leaning back into her embrace. "Yeah, just thinking about your mom's visit. How are you feeling about it?" Sarah was quiet for a moment, her chin resting on my shoulder. "Nervous," she admitted, "but also hopeful. We've come a long way, all of us." She was right. The past 6 months had been a journey of growth and healing, not just for Sarah and me, but for our relationship with Evelyn as well. The weekly video calls had been awkward at first, stilted and filled with uncomfortable silences. But gradually, things had started to change. I remembered the first time Evelyn had asked about my new job, showing genuine interest in my work at the tech startup I joined. It was a small thing, but it had felt monumental at the time. Sarah had squeezed my hand off camera, both of us acknowledging the effort Evelyn was making. There had been setbacks, of course, the time Evelyn had casually mentioned the size of our apartment compared to our house in Boston, or when she pressed a little too hard about when we were planning to start a family. But instead of letting these moments throw us off course, we faced them head-on. Sarah gently but firmly reminding her mother of our boundaries. "You're right," I said, turning to face Sarah. "We have come a long way, and hey, if it gets too overwhelming, we can always escape to the farmer's market. Your mom did say she wanted to see the fresh produce." Sarah laughed, the sound lightening the mood. True, though knowing Mom, she'd probably try to negotiate a better price for the kale. As we finished getting ready for work, I found myself reflecting on how much our lives had changed. Sarah had thrown herself into her new role at a local nonprofit, coming home each day with stories of the people she was helping and the difference she was making. I was thriving at the startup, enjoying the challenge and the innovative spirit of the tech scene here. But more than our professional lives, it was our relationship that had undergone the most profound transformation. The distance from Boston, from the pressures and expectations we'd left behind, had allowed us to rediscover each other. We communicated more openly, laughed more freely, and faced challenges as a united front. That evening, as we sat around the dinner table with the Millers, the conversation flowed easily. We talked about work, the latest exhibit at the Portland Art Museum, and our plans for the upcoming weekend. It struck me how natural it all felt, how at home we were in this new life we'd built. "So," Lisa Miller said, refilling her wine glass, "are you too excited about your mom's visit? It must be the first time since you moved here, right?" I felt Sarah tense slightly beside me, but her voice was steady when she replied, "We are. It's been an adjustment being so far apart, but in many ways, I think it's been good for our relationship." As Sarah went on to explain some of the changes we'd seen in our interactions with Evelyn, I marveled at her strength and grace. She had come so far from the woman who struggled to stand up to her mother, who had been torn between her love for me and her desire to please her family. Later that night, as we got ready for bed, Sarah brought up the conversation from dinner. "You know, talking about Mom's visit with the Millers made me realize something," she said, perching on the edge of the bed. "What's that?" I asked, sitting down beside her. "I'm not just nervous about the visit," she said, looking almost surprised by her own words. "I'm actually kind of excited. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure there will be moments of tension, but I'm looking forward to showing her our life here, to her seeing how happy we are." I pulled her into a hug, feeling a surge of love and pride. "I'm glad," I said softly. And you're right, we are happy here. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of work, social engagements, and preparations for Evelyn's visit. Before we knew it, we were standing at the arrivals gate at PDX Airport, watching as Evelyn emerged from the crowd of passengers. She seemed smaller somehow, less imposing than I remembered. As she spotted us and waved, I was struck by the genuine smile on her face. This wasn't the Evelyn who had stormed into our home in Boston, demanding and judgmental. This was a woman who had also been on a journey these past months. "Sarah, darling," Evelyn exclaimed, embracing her daughter. Then, to my surprise, she turned to me. "Alex," she said warmly, pulling me into a hug as well. "It's so good to see you both." As we made our way to the car, Evelyn chattered about her flight, the unseasonably warm weather in Boston, and the book she'd been reading. It was normal, pleasant even. Sarah caught my eye over her mother's head, a look of pleased surprise on her face. The next few days were a whirlwind of sightseeing and catching up. We took Evelyn to all our favorite spots: the Japanese garden, the waterfront, Powell's City of Books. We introduced her to the Millers and some of our other friends at a small dinner party. Through it all, Evelyn was gracious, interested, and most surprisingly, respectful of our space and choices. It wasn't perfect, of course. There were moments when old habits threatened to resurface: a pointed comment about the cost of living in Portland, a not-so-subtle hint about grandchildren. But each time we addressed it calmly and directly, and Evelyn listened, really listened. On Evelyn's last night with us, after a lovely dinner at a local restaurant, we sat in our living room, the city lights twinkling outside our window. Evelyn looked around the room, taking in the photos on the walls, the books on the shelves, the little touches that made this space uniquely ours. "You've built a beautiful life here," she said softly. "I can see how happy you both are." Sarah reached out and took her mother's hand. "We are, Mom. Thank you for seeing that." Evelyn's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "I owe you both an apology," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I was so caught up in what I thought was best for you, Sarah, that I couldn't see what was right in front of me." She turned to me. "I'm sorry for how I treated you, Alex. You're a good man, and you make my daughter happy. That's all I should have cared about." I felt a lump form in my throat. "Thank you, Evelyn," I managed to say. "That means a lot." We spent the rest of the evening talking, really talking, about our hopes, our fears, and our dreams for the future. It felt like the final pieces of a long unsolved puzzle were finally falling into place. The next morning, as we said goodbye to Evelyn at the airport, there were tears, but they were tears of gratitude and hope, not sadness or resentment. As we watched her disappear through security, Sarah leaned into me, and I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. "Well," she said, looking up at me with a smile, "I think we can call that a success." I nodded, placing a kiss on her forehead. "Definitely. Now, how about we go home and start planning that European vacation?" Sarah laughed, the sound ringing through the bustling airport. "I thought you'd never ask." As we walked hand in hand out of the airport and into the bright Portland morning, I felt a deep sense of peace. We had faced our challenges, made difficult decisions, and come out stronger for it. Our life wasn't perfect. No life ever is. But it was ours, built on a foundation of love, respect, and understanding. The road ahead would surely have its bumps and turns. But I knew that together, Sarah and I could handle whatever came our way. We had chosen each other, chosen our path, and in doing so, we had found not just resolution but a new beginning. The Portland rain started to fall lightly as we reached our car, but neither of us minded. After all, a little rain never hurt anyone, especially not here, in our new home, where we had finally found our place in the world together. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.